getting your anxiety levels down so that you're no longer controlled by your limbic system, that your prefrontal cortex is now able to think words like equality, diversity, humility, um, value for each other. Those concepts are key to build community. There is change that will happen, but the piece that doesn't change is to learn to love yourself in the process, to accept it, to value yourself, to get rid of shame and guilt and all those words that are not very helpful. Self-forgiveness, forgiveness of others, key pieces of knowing yourself. And if you can do half of that before it's time to leave this earth, you're a long way to knowing it.
Welcome to Knowing Who You Are, Johnson. I hope it's a great day for you.
Certainly. So, for me, I view weekends as a funny thing nowadays because I see weekends as something that's historical. So it's historical in that sense. There's still, you need to stress and rest, so you need to relax. For most of the world, it doesn't quite work that way. To me, you work either a seasonal bit or project based, saying, okay, well, I'm doing this project, and as well as anybody else, it can be, I need to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and finish at 10 o'clock because I've got so much to do. Or sometimes I'm doing Saturdays, sometimes I'm doing Sundays, but as long as you can find a point in time that you actually stop. That to me is more relevant than a weekend.
Great. We started on a very positive note in the sense that we have started touching up on the things that I want to talk to you about, because you have this online space is Momentum Life Choices. You established with your partner with a vision to empower community, holistic transformation, even though you are quite reluctant to use the word holistic. So probably you can give us a background. I mean, what prompted you to start this platform, so to speak?
Okay. So for me, community is a very important word. I see where we are at present in terms of this pandemic. There is an effect of a virus, and there's a direct effect on you personally, your health. But the broader picture of a virus is isolation. So you and I are doing this over Zoom.
Yeah.
I guess in pre-COVID times, in PC times, we sit down in a room together. You'd have your mic over there, and I have my mic over here.
Yeah.
So already we have an effect, which is isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And isolation plays a big part in it. Isolation means a break in community. The whole idea of momentum life choices, or as we talk about it in terms of resilience, is being able to get to a point where we can explore some of the aspects of life. And I don't like the word holistic in the sense that it's kind of overused. But in terms of, if I talk about it in terms of mind, body, or spirit, it's that physically you've got aspects of movement or fitness or exercise, and all of these have their own connotations.
The word is overused, but don't you think it's relevant at the same time? Because when we're talking about mind, body, when you're combining it together, then definitely it has a relevance, isn't it?
Oh, it has relevance, yes. But I'm always careful of who I use it with, shall I say. I have these little bugbears about words because words have power.
Definitely.
So holistic, again, coming from your culture, your background, or your experience. I said that so we're going to experience something holistic. You might be thinking, and again, I don't want to put words into your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the culture says holistic is spirit or
Mm.
spiritual. Okay. Whereas if I said that to my personal trainer, by the way, I don't have a personal trainer, but if I had a personal trainer, I said, I want to do some holistic work with you.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, we're going to do some cardio, we're going to do some strength training, and then I'm going to get your heart rate in the right zone. So all of that, you see, it's dependent on context.
Mm.
So without exploring the context, if I throw the word holistic out without exploring it, it it well, to me, it needs more definition before I use that word. I know nothing. I'm an explorer like everybody else.
Exactly. We all are.
We all are. But if I set up something and I say we're a community and you need to follow me, well, actually we're not building community. You're building something else. But we won't go on what that's something. It could be guruship. It could be dictatorship. It can be anything, but it's not community.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, community is right. So you have an area of expertise, and I'm looking here and I'm thinking, my goodness, there's all those guitars behind you, etc. You could teach me a thing or two about
Mm.
music, or you can teach me a thing or two about tech. And so I would want to experience or learn something from you. And perhaps I could show you something of the space that I've been exploring.
Definitely. That's synergy.
That synergy and that bringing it together is has to be based on words like equality, diversity, humility, um, value for each other. Those concepts are key to build community.
Okay.
So for us in Momentum, it's like, okay, I I have some little experience in um, understanding fitness and some little understanding of nutrition, perhaps about mental health, perhaps about physical health. But there's a lot more people who know a lot more than I do on each particular spot. And so it's bringing people together who are willing to share what they know, who are willing to try and understand some other person's perspective.
I mean, that's what we are trying to do with knowing who you are as well. That's the
Yeah,
synergy that we are talking about. But speaking of, since you mentioned about this, an example that came to you about your personal trainer, the imaginary personal trainer, but
yeah,
also fitness, and because everything is connected, your physical health, your mental health. So
yeah,
definitely it comes down to having a good routine as well, which we hear, especially every time we talk about successful people, people who are very active, productive, they have a very effective routine. So
yeah.
what's your routine like? How do you start your day, or how you end it, and throughout the day, how do you maintain it?
Okay, I'll tell you my struggle. I struggle with a routine.
Okay.
Um, I have been struggling to avoid doom scrolling. So one of my practices now, more successfully than in the past, in the last year, is not taking the phone anywhere near the bedroom.
Yeah.
Or if I have the phone in the bedroom because I need to get up at a certain time, I switch off the Wi-Fi. I switch off I switch everything off except the alarm that I need. So
Around
if
what
you,
time in the evening do you do that?
no, I don't tend to do that because I don't tend to get distracted in the same way.
Okay.
So in the evening, I guess my routine has varied from I need to read something.
Mm-hmm.
I need something that fills me positively. So I gave up watching the news for a while because all I get is, at least on the BBC, is how many COVID cases there are.
Mm,
To be honest, it's not doing me any good.
exactly.
For me, it's like if I say I get a piece of information or I hear something, it's now what and so what. So COVID cases, now what? What do I do with that piece of information? What does that piece of information do to me?
Mm,
So unless I can act on it or it has some positive effect on me, I'm not going to engage with it. The routine, the rituals, if you call it, would be getting up. I engage in movement. The movement could be anything from shrugging your shoulders to listening to music that activates or soothes or relaxes. Even in the morning, it's like, okay, before you do anything else, let's get in the right frame of mind,
mm.
get in the right physical space so that your day starts off on the right foot.
When have you started practicing this ritual or this routine?
My weaknesses are greater than my strengths. So my weaknesses is trying to stick to a set routine.
Mm,
Okay. Because that's the way my mind works. It kind of tends to flip. And so I settle on a routine for a while and then it changes.
mm.
So the movement piece started with when the lockdown started. Well, actually, no, it
Okay.
started before that. So my fitness journey started with moving. And so I follow people online. Normally do I copy and paste. I see you, I copy it, and then I alter it.
Mm.
So if you're moving at a particular rate and it's too slow for me,
Hmm.
that's you're going too
I
fast for
mean,
me.
copying
That's,
means you get inspired, probably. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the word. Say, as a musician, I can tell. Many
yeah,
times we say that when you're singing, when you're playing an instrument, first of all, people start by copying. Then it's more of an inspiration. But then you find your own direction if you're creative enough.
yeah.
Which this creativity thing is a very interesting topic, and you have discussed about this. And I understand your master's dissertation was had it had something to do with creativity as well.
Yes.
And you recently, I've seen one of your talks as well, where you were discussing. You have a series on. I mean, I would urge people to go and check it on YouTube as well. MLC, Momentum Life Choices on YouTube, so they can find those talks. You're doing a series on resilience, and there's a
Yes.
correlation that you talked about between creativity and resilience.
There is. Yeah.
So your childhood, was it in England or is another country, or where do you grow up, or how your childhood shaped you to who you are now, or did it really have an effect? Because for me, I can say that how I started at some point in my life, and there's not anybody how I want to lead my life now, where my what my vision is or my purpose or how I'm trying to find the meaning in life. No one told me. I just had to find it myself. How did it work for you?
I was given it.
You're given, okay.
I say that jokingly. So I was born in Trinidad.
Uh-huh.
Trinidad is an island in the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
which consists demographically, the population is half black, half Indian, of Indian extraction. Okay, so
Yeah.
I use it so broadly, and everybody else in between.
Yeah.
So I fit it into the everybody else in between.
Okay.
My dad, who came from China in those days, said to me, "You've got a choice of what you want to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
You can either do medicine, you can do law, or you can come and work with me in the shop that he had." So his values, yeah, were definitely hard work and security for his children.
Yeah.
So basically, he said, "Well, you know what? Um, quite pragmatically, he said, if you wanted to be a lawyer,
Mm.
this country, it wouldn't work for you because Black people would go to black people for law. Indian people would go to Indian people, and nobody goes to a Chinese lawyer in this country. Culturally, I think it's true that um, in those days that's what it is. Now it's much more diverse than that um,
Hmm.
in the world. So
And I understand your interest in creativity and creative arts work or any kind of creative art forms. So that
yeah.
brings me to that question, the creativity, because you, as you said, you have done your dissertation on creativity. If you can shed more light on that one.
So creativity exists in everyone. Okay,
True.
there is nobody who is not creative
Hmm.
because we are wired for creativity. Um, how it's expressed or is it expressed is a different story. So I believe that it needs sometimes a search to find it, the expression of it. Sometimes it requires you to dig a little deeper. Sometimes it requires you to wait a little while to find it. Um, and for me, that creativity piece is important because, like you, um, I live with somebody who is an artist. My wife is an artist, so I've been immersed in her world. So I
Are we
say,
looking at one of her paintings behind you at the moment?
yes, that's a piece of
Okay,
work.
great.
Um, so for me, it was exploring creativity in the sense of the logical bit of me thinks if you find enough dots to join, the more creative you will be. And so it's that search of finding the dots that,
Okay.
that is important.
So the thing is, definitely everyone has the creativity. I believe in that, and there's always someone has some uniqueness in them, but
Yeah.
not everyone ends up finding it. What stops it, do you think? I mean, how do they get diverted and how it remains unexplored throughout their life, even though they have that creativity in them?
Okay. So there's a sentence that I know too well. That is, the dust of life covers your dreams.
True.
So when I talk to you about my childhood and my dad, my dad said to me, "Yeah, you go and do this." So I did 25 years in the medical field. I don't have any regrets on it because it it was what was needed at the time to advance not just me but also for my sister because he was an older person at the time that I came along, and he said, "Well, I can't support her. So you do this, and then I do this for you, and then you support her." So it's a passing on a generational thing. So that kind of thing covered the bit that I was really interested in, which is people.
Mm. I think when you told me that you went to do your master's at the age of 50,
Hmm.
so did it have anything to do with the exploration of neuroplasticity? Because they say this uncertainty which we have faced in 2020 that
Yeah.
creates a lot of neuroplasticity and that totally changed that idea that after the age of 20 mid 20s that our brain stops growing and we kind of it deteriorates.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
exactly.
some kind
Yeah.
of experiment that you wanted to do with yourself, or what was the idea behind going back to, and especially this creativity? That's what you wanted to do your masters on.
So when I started to look at doing a master's, it was
Mm.
with the idea of hold on, I need to uncover something that's been covered up. And I'm going to waffle this one through because
Hmm. Please.
when my wife would, when I come home from work from the hospital, and she would say, "So what did you do today?" Well, frankly, I'd be telling her about experiences I had talking to people in the corridors,
Mm.
as opposed to, "Oh yes, we did this operation, that operation, and this was the anatomy and this and this," and we didn't expect to find that when they opened this patient up and all the rest of that.
Because you had been an anesthetist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, anesthetics for that length of time.
Yeah.
So I would be telling her about, oh, by the way, yes, I was talking to this woman as they did a cesarean section, and we had a discussion on the hero's journey.
Mm.
Oh, not many anesthetists talk to their patients about the hero's journey. And yeah, we had a fabulous chat, and the baby was healthy as well when it came out. So these sort of things happen, but life happens and things happen that dampen down
Mm.
wherever your passion and your dreams are. And I believe that they'll always be with you. And from time to time, it's like hearing this little voice that calls out, Ershad, Ershad. Sometimes it speaks louder.
Mm.
And if you start to listen to it, it starts to pull you or invite you into a direction.
It's like, as they say, finding your purpose. I mean, that flickering light within this conversation is hidden, and every now and then you could see that light that's beckoning.
Exactly, yeah. Where we are now is kind of like, hold on, let's get in the real world. The real
Mm-hmm.
world is, you have bills to pay, or you have mortgages to pay, or you feel you have mortgages to pay. Decisions have to be made. So there are points in time where you physically can't do anything,
Mm-hmm.
and decisions have to be made. So there are points, we're in this point in history. There's lots of things that would stop people doing from what they want to do. Of course, I don't turn around and say, you know what, pack everything in and follow your dreams, because that could be dangerous, if not downright stupid.
Yeah.
But whatever your dreams are, I see it in terms of portfolio. So your life is a portfolio. People talk about portfolio careers, isn't it? And I
Mm-hmm.
think you have a portfolio career.
Yeah.
There are bits that you get paid for and the bits that you don't get paid for. And it's like balancing the, the happiness, the joy, the passion, the dreams with perhaps it doesn't fit in quite with what you're getting paid for,
Mm-hmm.
or perhaps it's not running at the same time. So it's not running in parallel, but it's out of sync. So something's running faster than the other bit, and sometimes it goes like
Yeah.
this. Sometimes it goes together at the same time. Sometimes it meshes. So we're not all in that position where you can just pack everything up and follow your dreams.
Mm. But I think 2020, this pandemic, that had kind of compelled us to confront the situation and to see where we are, or sometimes, probably for some people, accidentally, they kind of discovered that, okay, this is what's hidden in me, because people were pushed. You are confined within the confinement of these four walls, and there's nothing else to do. So some people start tapping into their creativity and that side that was totally dormant all those years,
Yes, yeah.
which definitely helped them. And you have interviewed one of those. I've seen a fireman. He was, and then he's an artist now as and a musician as well. He's
Yeah,
touring. So this anxiety, especially, that's one of the things that, especially when we have the uncertainty that creates this feeling of insecurity. Okay, what happens if I start going that direction? Try something, as you said, that doesn't pay your bill. That feeling of uncertainty, and that's definitely is one of the driving force behind all the anxiety disorders. How do you see that? What's the way of overcoming? I know it's a big question. There are a lot of things involved. It can't be answered just in one line or one sentence. But to start with, where we should look.
Okay. So I come back to my medical training
Mm-hmm.
on it. If let's say you're in your car and somebody cuts you up and they
Yeah,
give you they can give you two fingers. They can either give you that fingers or they can give you the other two fingers.
exactly.
Whichever way it is, you'll either feel happy or not so happy, but it will happen. and it will happen whatever you do. So rather than try and control that piece of it, it's like, let's look at the other side, which is calming yourself back down. Because all of us get the volcano going up, but the volcano going up, it goes up like this. The calming bit down usually takes a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, I can't solve your problems because I don't even know half of your problems. Or
Is that a sympathetic response you're saying, right?
yes, so there's a sympathetic response to fight or flight bit.
Yeah.
When your sympathetic goes up,
Mm.
it stays up because the sympathetic is meant to, the guy is in past you, he's cut you off, he's given you the fingers, well, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still in that space, well, you're in the wrong space. If you're in that space for too long, your relationship with your wife will suffer.
Yeah.
You will come home and you will be. If you're still in that space 2 days later,
Mm-hmm.
it's gone from your adrenaline to your cortisol, and the hormones start kicking in, and they keep kicking in. And that has an effect on your immune system, that has an effect on your microbiome, that has an effect on your gut. All of that kicks in, and you're in chronic stress. So that's different. Now, chronic stress is going to cause you more harm than the guy showing you his two fingers.
Yeah. Especially if you're a driver in London, then you face it day in, day out.
It keeps happening. So it is that what I tell people is like, you need to work out how you get out of that stress situation in order to keep the brake moving, to calm down. And so in that doing, it allows the other part of your brain, the logical, the thinking bit, the creative piece, to start to solve the problem. Start to find the other dots to join in which you can alleviate the problems, to look in new directions, to rediscover bits of yourself that have been hidden and covered down by dust.
So it's like you don't have control over it, but you can control your responses.
You can control one part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can reset. I'll use another metaphor. You can reset the triggering. So if you've got a gun and the trigger is so sensitive, yeah, so you can reset the sensitivity of the trigger, and you can also reset how high it shoots up.
Okay.
That you can reset. You can't affect the fact that it's going to go up.
So what's the way? I mean, I know it's not that you can tell within 5 minutes, but what they should try to do, or what kind of practice they should, or the headspace they should put them in.
So mindfulness is a big topic. So mindfulness practices for one, meditation practices, prayer practices, breathing there's a lot of work around breath work. So breathing, either square breathing, people do the breathing, holding in one, out the other way, the other nostril, that works. It helps calming yourself down.
You mentioned about visualization as well.
Visualization is a big one, yeah.
I would like to add in this connection, sorry to interrupt, because before even knowing about this, what I used to do many years ago, I started doing it when I started driving, every now and then comes in front and you don't like it and you feel a bit of anger and you get upset. And at some point I started telling myself, okay, let's not get angry with this person and try to put yourself in his or her shoes and think, probably he's going to the hospital. Probably there's an emergency. Probably even he needs to go to the toilet, probably. I mean, I used to make up these scenarios. And I felt that the moment I've started doing it, that it calmed me down. Would you call that visualization?
That involves visualization, yeah. But the two elements that you described that are different. One is, so you're reframing the story. you've got a story running in your head
Yeah.
that is doing this deliberately to me because that's what it feels like. You've reframed the story by putting different scenarios in. So one of the practices I tell people is reframe it and find 6 different stories you can tell. So you've done one. You're going to the hospital. The other is, oh, he's desperate for the toilet. And as soon as you say that, you start to smile. What you've done is make use of humor. So you've created a story in your head that is humorous, that goes. As soon as so that classically is what people would say. Sort of just imagine them naked. Yeah, exactly. So it diffuses the sympathetic drive. It brings you to a point where you're no longer chronically stressed.
Because as humans, we are quite negativity biased. I mean, we have this tendency to everything we suffer more in our imagination than in reality, as they say. So, say, for example, that's one way. And I think you mentioned on one of your videos as well, that when the visualization happens, so even if you don't have any control over the sympathetic responses, but you can control, you talked about the trigger. So how to, from this negativity, if you kind of channel your thought process towards a positive or from the opposite direction, say you're thinking, what's going to happen? I have an interview. So if I go to the interview, probably it's not going to work out. I'm not well prepared. I'm going to fail and they won't like me. But you suggested that how about putting the positive scenario in your head, just plant it or kind of say that, no, I'm very well prepared. I'm going to do very well. So is this one of the ways that you suggested?
Yeah. Again, it comes back to the speed of thought. So the first thing is awareness. You need to, before you know it, all of us do this. Think, yeah, the negative bit comes in. But it's so fast that we're not used to seeing it coming. So the first thing to do is try and create a gap. So I believe in the scripture that says, take every thought captive. In practical terms, what that means is you need to see it coming in order to catch it. So let's use the example. I'm really hungry, okay? And it can move so quickly that long before anything else happens, I'm in my hands in the fridge, reaching for that chocolate cake. And then it goes on and it goes on. Next thing you know, you're in a place, you're weighing more than you should weigh. So I'd say, right, you say to yourself, I'm feeling hungry. Then you stop and you say, I am thinking I am feeling hungry. So immediately, you've gone from this, I'm feeling hungry, to I am thinking I am feeling hungry. And so instead of a short sentence, you've opened it up. That awareness, I am thinking about that idiot that cut me up, made me really angry. I am thinking that I am really angry. If you just say that, it goes down.
No, I mean, that famous quote by Viktor Frankl, where he said that between the stimulus and the response, there's a gap. And in that gap, I mean, it decides, that's the deciding factor that says who you are and what you're going to do or how you react to that situation. So how you look at it. So normally whenever it happens, say someone says something, it happened to me the other day as well. I was coming from the gym biking and there's a zebra crossing which was closed. I didn't realize at the time, but I took my cycle just to cross the road. There was a van coming. The guy literally stopped. He took a moment and he wasted the time on me to call me a name and saying something that, didn't you see that? Are you blind? This is that. And he used some offensive words as well. I just looked at him and I was feeling, rather than getting angry, I felt really pity for him. I felt, oh, probably this guy is going through really troublesome time. Today is a bad day for him.
Yeah,
He came out of the house having a fight with someone very near, or he's
yeah,
upset about something. And I definitely, it affected me because those words directed towards you, you don't take it well. As you say,
no,
they're
not at all.
straight away. You're in fight mode or in,
Yeah, yeah.
flight mode. But the thing is, then I realized, no, I started feeling sorry, and I came home and I shared this story, and I started feeling, okay, this practice is getting there. The things you said, visualization is one thing, and framing your mind, and also this, do you do this like every time it happens to you? Do you take a moment and tell yourself how do you suggest people practice this?
I don't. Let me explain that statement, because just like you, okay, that thing with the bike, you will feel it, and it will go up so quickly. But then you realize that the calming down. So you've just given a perfect example of how it comes back down. Comes back down much slower than how it went up.
Exactly.
And that is something that we all have to accept. I'm not saying don't feel anything, because if you don't feel anything, you might as well be a robot.
Exactly.
And that's not going to happen. That's saying, I'm not saying that you can do that.
And that's a worrying thing, isn't it? That nervous system, that part,
Yes.
that response, if it's dead, then there's something worrying that you won't be able to respond.
So the first, exactly. So if you can't respond with anger, you can't respond to love.
Beautiful.
Somebody tries to block out anger, they're blocking out love at the same time. So, but that's a different topic. So for me, it's like saying, okay, you have to accept that I am angry. You have to accept I'm feeling stupid, or I'm feeling whatever it is the feeling is. So coming back to the question of how do you practice it? You practice it before it happens. The dress rehearsals of, if you're doing a presentation, it's exactly the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going for an interview, so I practice this beforehand, because I know fully well when I get there, my brain will go.
Yeah.
But if you practice it and you hit the trigger point, so the trigger point in this case is something positive. The other practice I think is important is believing what are your principles and what are your values and how that works. So if you say to yourself, I will never argue with an angry person. I will try, or I will never escalate a problem. So
set the value, set the principle first.
Exactly. Because
Very
those
good.
hold you once you catch yourself in this position, and you repeat these things over and over to yourself so that they become part of your identity.
Yeah.
And once they're in place, okay, I can get angry, I can get mad, I can be upset, but somewhere along the line, something triggers one principle. I will never argue with an angry person.
No, that's very good advice. I mean, I think this is true. I mean, if you can't just do it just overnight, no transformation happens like that. So it's a mindful practice that you have to do over and over and over again.
Exactly. Otherwise, I'd be asking you to go from a 5-year-old to a 20-year-old in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It won't work in the physical, it won't work in the mental space.
What do you think of to-do list? Like this, how many things or what I have to do? Everyone, some people do it the night before. Some people do like this is the time, the first thing in the morning when they get up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, they make their to-do list. What do you think of that? I mean, how does it work? Or does it work for you? Or do you have that?
I do it sometimes.
Okay.
Or I would do it based on who's given me the list. So if my wife gives me the list, it's not a to-do list, it's a must-do list.
Okay.
It depends. But I think that they do have value as a framework. but not so that it's so rigid
Mm.
that it's set in concrete.
But
Um,
it's an interesting thing that I have realized that most people recent days I see more and more, I read more and more that some people say have only one thing you find that's a highlight of the day, or at least keep 2 to 3 that you feel that if you don't do that, there's some, it's like 80-20 principle.
yeah,
Like what 3 things I would do today, what 2 things I would do today, that would be enough for me for the rest of the day. Then after that, I can get out and do my other things. So because we have this tendency, we try to push down the most emergency one. We feel like, okay, let's push it down, let's move it to tomorrow. And we try to find those highlights. Doing something is the dopamine rush, that we do something easier. And like, okay, I've done a few things. Definitely, I've done some. So what do you think of that?
Brian Tracy wrote a book called Eat the Frog,
Yeah.
on procrastination. Beautiful little book. I recommend people read that. If you haven't read that, go read that. So
And it's a small book as well, very, very easily digestible.
very, very digestible. And what that does is it feeds into your brain in terms of your dopamine rush. So it's a bit like saying, you know what, I'm going to eat my dessert first and then I'm going to eat my main course. Well, it doesn't work that way, does it? So it's the same way. If I do the most difficult thing first, I then reward myself with something that gives me more pleasure because I've paid the price first and then I enjoy the benefit.
I mean, I started practicing this one using an app called Focus. I've seen some other people, they have started, yeah. So I would just put myself, say I'm studying something for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, literally, because you can't touch your phone, do nothing. And then after that 25 or 30 minutes, then I would just do this 5 minutes of, say, pick up my phone, check this message or social media, whatever. I mean, I've started doing it now. Nowadays, what I do, especially, say, for example, every now and then, we are all guilty of that. We are just checking constantly. Even, say, for example, I'm talking to my partner and I just pick up my phone while she's talking. And I'm just on my phone. Okay, yeah. But then suddenly when I wake up, I'm like, what am I doing? So I started doing, just put my phone in the bedroom when we are planning to have dinner or lunch, something, sit together somewhere, just our time we're spending. I just intentionally don't keep it with me. So I don't even get to touch it. I think, and so you do similar thing. You turn off your Wi-Fi, you put the phone away.
Yeah, I go lock the door so I can't get back into whatever it is that I want, because to me, it's about habit formation. If I depend on my willpower to do anything, I've lost the game.
Exactly.
So we have a loft conversion here. I put all my stuff downstairs on the bottom, and I am the laziest person ever. I will not walk down 2 flights of stairs to get to this unless I'm desperate.
Yeah.
And that is using psychology to help yourself. If you put more obstacles in the way of stuff you don't want and make stuff easier for the stuff you do want, then you don't depend on willpower.
Yeah. We were talking about that book the other day, James Clear's Atomic Habits. Yeah. So I started following some of the things as well, because there would be times we're going to the gym, and he had an example around that. That sometimes if you feel like, okay, I don't have time to go to the gym, or you make some excuses, how about getting everything ready? I've started putting literally my backpack literally on the floor. So I see that, and it's an orange bag. So I can't even avoid that. I see that it's there. So I have no excuses to avoid.
And it's blocking the front door, so you can't get out to the door.
Yeah. No, already put the key there. So you just go and open the door. So that's really nice. And there's another thing, because we started talking about anxiety. That's one of the things I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And another correlation because anxiety, and to face the anxiety, you need to have the resilience, but you had drawn a connection between creativity and resilience. How does it work?
Okay. So for me, resilience and creativity is linked by curiosity. The more curious you are, the more your mind can expand into different areas. So resilience is one there's several definitions. One could be, well, life's knocked you down and you need to get up somehow, back to where you were. One level of resilience. You've lost your job, you need to find another job. Okay? How about if you've lost your job and you find another job, but even better than the one you had, in a new direction, which is a different level of resilience. It is not just bouncing back up to the level, but bouncing back up and going even higher. You can talk about that on a personal level. People talk about that in business. And everybody has been forced to find a new way of doing it. Otherwise, and it might be better than the old way.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones who have found it are the ones who are the most successful.
Okay.
We're talking about COVID. Personally, it's the same thing. It's like the process is one of getting your anxiety levels down so that you're no longer controlled by your limbic system, that your prefrontal cortex is now able to think, you're able to search, to look. All of that is important. But I say if you can move back long before you get into this fight or flight and the crisis situation, is to practice curiosity. Walk down the road and wonder why that door is white and all the rest of them are blue. And then make up your stories. Because the guy there wanted to be a rebel and everybody else had a blue door and whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But first be curious to notice something and then ask the question and keep playing with it. Be playful. So I'm here thinking, Ershad, I'm wondering why is that guitar behind your right shoulder white and all the rest of them are brown or something like that? And I can make up a story or I can ask you, whatever it is, but it's first noticing. And as I start to do that, I think, I didn't notice that guitar on the left-hand wall. Or I didn't notice that letter, it looks like a G. So what is that? What's the letter next to it? Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, except that as you start to do it, your awareness builds.
You're opening your mind, reinventing.
Exactly. So I'm looking there and I'm thinking, is that a fire extinguisher on the floor? What is that? Again, it doesn't really matter what it is. I'm seeing a HALL. My guess it says Marshall.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's a process of learning, and that's a process of curiosity. If you want to go into it, then I think that's what is a big fault with our educational system. Now, we don't teach the process of curiosity, which connects to creativity, which connects to resilience.
Yep. That's one of the things as well, the anxiety disorder that happens from the uncertainty, how to deal with this one. So this creative process, when you can sit, comfortably, even though, because sometimes we are always trying to safeguard ourselves and don't want to get out of our comfort zone. So that's one of the way, because every time, say, when you start saying that people go for a set career, say either you become, because my background, I studied law, but then I diverted when I realized. But even to make the choice, because you have stories to tell as well, I know, regarding that same line. So it took me quite a long time, nearly 7 years, 6, 7 years, to decide that whether I should do it. How about all these years I spent going through all the processes, all this post grad and everything? Shall I do it? What people will think, what my family will think, and how am I going to, or would it work where I'm planning to go or what I'm planning to do? Say, for example, you decided when you went for your master's, I understand. I mean, you told me if you could share that story, like towards that 5 years before your retirement age, or you said that how you took the risk is kind of a financial risk you had taken.
So whatever big decision you make, there's lots of factors to bear in mind. One of which comes down to your values again. Am I valuing security over adventure? Do I value time, or do I value security or
financial security? Yeah,
financial security. What's happening in my present? Burnout is an interesting one. So people can burn out and rust out at the same time. You're burning out because other people are enforcing stuff on you that you may not be interested in doing, or the pressures are external. But you might be rusting out because internally your brain's going, I'm not interested in this. But I'm doing it for my pension. I'm doing it because my wife wants me to do it, or I'm doing it because whatever the reason is, it's an external reason.
But we have a limited time on Earth. That's the problem.
Exactly. So you do have a limited time. And if you can't, and that's why I say you have to be also a little bit realistic in it. I'm not a optimism wins the day, because optimism will make you fall off the cliff with no parachute. You have to have some realism in that, you know what, you can't abandon your kids and go right off in the Wild West. But you can still have kids and enjoy your music if that's where you are, but you still need to do something with your kids. So financial security.
Yeah.
So me at that point in time, my children have gone beyond, so they have fulfilled my responsibilities to them. And I'm in this point of transition where I say, well, okay, I now want to explore what else is there, or what's been buried that I want to find and express in a more expansive way. So I don't want to just talk to people in the corridors and find my joy, my bliss, as Joseph Campbell said.
And put it in service as well, probably, for other people, what I'm feeling, and put it in good use. Yeah.
So all of that, you come upon the obstacles. So are you just going to throw away all your training for so many years? I'm sure you've heard that one. You've trained for so many years, you're just going to dump it and walk off and go and do some? Maybe not, but I don't know. I think it does come into play. But
it's definitely come into play. I've seen it in my own life.
Yeah. But it'll come into play in a different way.
In a different way, exactly.
Yeah. It may come into a transferable skill. It may come into it in opening doors in a different way. Who knows? But unless you make the step, you will never know.
No, that's one of the things, because this in one of the researches, it was found that most of the time when people get to a certain age, say, or even in their deathbed, when they're asked, okay, what do you regret most? And then most of the time they say it's the missed opportunities. But mostly it happens from our fear of failure in life. So, but one way, say, for example, if we can most of the time project ourselves to our future self and thinking, which one will I regret? What can outweigh? So would I, if I regret the missed opportunities, is it not better to try that and start doing something towards that direction where I can fulfill some of my desires, what I want to do in life?
I'll back up for a minute.
Yeah.
So the concept of flow which was made popular in the 1980s by Csikszentmihalyi, is where people understand it as, if you're playing your guitar and your partner says, "Hey, it's time for dinner," and you look and you think, "I've been doing this now for 8 hours, really?" Of course, that people understand as flow, and they think, "Wow,
Flow state.
he must have been really enjoying himself for 8 hours." And of course, that may or may not be true. The piece that most people don't realize is that in the middle of it, you're solving a problem. You got knowledge. There's something that is you want to work at that may involve a lot of hard work. And so the joy, the passion, all that sort of stuff is only one piece of flow. The other piece is the complexity of adding the challenge to it.
So is it like when are you overcoming the challenge? So also you're getting motivated. So
Correct. Yeah. And that piece is usually outside of who we are. So if I'm doing it because I totally enjoy, the Greek is hedonistic, and the other one is eudaimonic, where the two have to be in alignment to really get you in the flow. If it's purely pleasure doesn't do it.
So eudaimonic, if you could explain the term for everyone and for me as well.
Eudaimonic is that purpose bit, that bit that says this is outside of who I am. So in terms of Maslow's hierarchy, most people think ends at self-actualization. It doesn't. It ends with us actualization, which brings me back to community. Because it is doing something that I will never see a result from. The other way of putting it, or the other example is the line you hear, "We all sit under an apple tree that readeth lamp." And in the same way, whatever you are doing, you would hope that it has benefit that goes beyond your 70 or 100 years. And that piece allows you to get into flow and stay in flow.
So is it the legacy you're talking about?
It is legacy, but living legacy. Because I'm not talking about inheritance legacy. You have to feel that as you're doing it.
So what do you think is the driving factor? Is it like my name would be there, or I've done something for people which other people can be benefited from?
No, it can't be based on you. Because
exactly.
It's wrongly centered.
What's the harm in it if someone try to center it within themselves and think that, okay, I want to do it self-gratification? I'm just being a devil's advocate.
That will muddy the water.
How?
In the sense of it will divert you from taking risks. So there's that piece about risk taking. If I'm let's say I come to a point where what I'm trying to do with momentum takes off and I have 50 million people around me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, great, that's a fantastic community. And then, hold on, it's my name at the top of it. So I need to keep going, because if I make a mistake now, other people won't like me or or something else. And it's centered around me. So the whole thing is based around Johnson as the core piece. And it's subtle, isn't it? So that your motivation, and motivation is important in that it will always be mixed, by the way.
It's also not aligned with the purpose.
Exactly. And so I'm not going for sainthood. But success brings its own sort of traps. And it always comes back to recentering what is the goal. And if the goal is outside of you, then it will pull you even further, and it will allow you to take risks that you wouldn't take otherwise if it was only centered on you.
No, I mean it's also is service oriented. Normally they say that if you want to find happiness, try to, or when you're in pain, don't live. I mean, reflect through the pain and try to do something for someone else. So you'll find the healing. It would start happening in you. This is one of the process, probably. So, so I would like to ask you one thing, since we have been talking about this negativity bias that we have in us. So, in that sense, and the risks you have taken, do you have any kind of regrets? If you go back, you have a chance of going back to your younger self, would you tell him to do things differently? Any advice?
I've pondered that one, and the answer is maybe.
Okay.
So one of the things I believe is that wisdom comes from the ability to hold paradoxes.
Mm.
If I was telling you a black and white answer to that, you're thinking, I don't know that I believe that. So regrets is a funny word, because there's some things, some effects of my actions that I wish weren't to be the case. So I've made mistakes in my life, and it's hurt some people along the way, and I wish they weren't hurt. However, I've seen positive effects, and I have to believe that they have their own journey to take, and so that they can come to a point of this will be of benefit to them.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes if we are not pushed, I mean, if we don't find our back pushed to the wall, then we don't see that improvement in us. Correct. We sometimes need that push. That's why probably we weren't ready at the time, or you weren't ready at the time. And sometimes many of the things I feel, when I look back, I could have done differently. But when I look at them, I see what possibility had arisen out of that, and how I transform myself, taking the lessons from there. But what are the ways? Say, for example, do we always have to wait for this push that there's nothing else to do and our back is pushed against the wall? And isn't there any other way before we have that realization, before we end up hurting someone else by our actions? Can we not develop? Is there any way of doing it before that this realization?
To come down to the question of regret, regret is not a useful thing to hold on to. Because if I hold on to regret and the what ifs, all the what ifs and the regrets are behind me.
And you can't drive looking at your rear view mirror.
Exactly. And so I need to find a way of decoupling the regrets, or the possible regrets, and move forward with it. So a lot of things that, like I say, I could have done differently, but we can only see one perspective in time. So it's like those movies like Back to the Future, if you know people are old enough to remember those. You think, every possible action has a different scenario, and you can't see the scenarios. You can only see the scenario that's happened as a result of that action. So
the possibilities. A
A
lot of doors. I mean, which door you would pick for yourself, and
you can only keep moving forward with a motivation to do good, to change for the better, etc., etc. Keep going forward, because at the end of the day, you know what? We were talking about me changing my job, quitting my job, not holding on to pensions, etc., etc. It's 2 years, from now, somebody knocks me off the bike or knocks me down or something, and you think, oh, you know what? If I'd hung on, I'd have had so much more money, and I'd be more secure now, and I can afford that standard lift instead of having to climb these stairs. These thoughts are totally useless thoughts, perhaps. Totally useless. Because they're again, like you said, they go down in a negative direction. but that you can't predict the future. You can only make the best possible choice based on your circumstances, on your incomplete knowledge. I just say, that is my choice.
True. Because most people, when you're just working, nowadays we talk about life work balance and everything. And at some point you realize, okay, I'm going to do this trip when I've saved enough money. I'm going to do this one when I'm at the age of 60 and when everything is put off. And then suddenly you reach that age and you find that probably you came down with a very bad disease and it's terminal. So, I mean, many things happen, and most of the time this was the mindset of, I would say it, for the baby boomers as well. This was one of the things. My parents, probably they had the kind of thing that, okay, work, and there's one retirement you take, and after that you sit down peacefully, you just rest, and other people will look after you. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the mindset. I
Yeah.
hear that still now.
Yeah.
So
We still live that. So there's a concept of the sabbatical. Okay. And
mini retirements.
mini retirements. Yeah. So the Jewish sabbatical was based on that 7-year cycle.
Hmm.
The Sabbath rest is typically in the Christian world is a Sunday. In the Jewish world, it's the Friday or the Saturday.
Hmm.
So there are different expressions of Sabbath. But they had us every 7 years. The Old Testament talks about release of slaves, of property going back to the original owner that you bought it from. The huge economic bits to that. But the idea you can take, instead of, as you said, the retirement at the end, well, at every 7 years, I will stop work. I will allow myself to have a year's Sabbath.
Okay.
Which comes into the creativity, which comes into the curiosity. It doesn't mean you take a year and you go to bed for a year. That's not a Sabbath.
Okay.
So you can take that approach, and some businesses and some business owners have taken that approach.
I mean, this is more the practice. Now everything has changed, and because this 1.5 years, people have started working from home. So it had made them realize about what they have been doing. It's a new realization. Many people even have, like in America, job opening are there, but not many people are applying for it. They feel that they want to do something else with their life. They want to try it in a different way rather than getting themselves stuck in this 9 to 5 schedule for 5 days, then just wait for the weekends.
There is a concept of the Great Resignation, which is an expression of why we're seeing all these job opportunities and nobody's taking it. Because when the pandemic hit, a lot of people didn't want to be on furlough. They quit. They absolutely quit. Said, I am not doing this anymore. So it shifted a segment of society into the Great Resignation. And they took a 90-degree turn, however that looked.
Again, when they're pushed against the wall, okay, this is my opportunity. I have reached the rock bottom, so what should I do? So, I mean, it's a really interesting conversation. I have gone beyond the time we are supposed to do an hour-long talk, but it's so valuable and so interesting as well. There's one thing I want to know from you, because as this podcast series is Knowing Who You Are, so to know who you are, to know about yourself, what do you think? What does it mean? How can someone know about themselves? And what's the best process? It's not about standing in front of the mirror and look at yourself. Okay, this is how I look and this is what I am. This is what I do. What would you say about knowing who you are? What do you understand by that?
I believe in a form of evolution. And the greatest evolution you can have on a personal basis is to evolve your comfort zone. To accept that you will come to a comfort zone in terms of your work identity, your home identity, and it will change. There will be a core piece of it that won't change, but most of it will change. So physically, you will change. When I was 15, I could run 100 meters in 2 minutes. That's not true, by the way. So now I can do, in the same 2 minutes, I can do 2 meters.
Yeah.
So there is change that will happen, but the piece that doesn't change is to learn to love yourself in the process, to accept it, to value yourself, to get rid of shame and guilt and all those words that are not very helpful. Self-forgiveness, forgiveness of others, are key pieces of knowing yourself. And if you can do half of that before it's time to leave this earth, you're a long way into knowing yourself.
Great advice. Johnson, so about MLC, Momentum Life Choices, where people would find more about this one, if you could tell everyone.
So you can find our website at momentumlifechoices.com. You can find us on most of the other social networks, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We're on most of that. But more importantly than all of that, not just finding us, because finding us is not necessarily what we're about, but it's come and join the conversation. Because as much as I have, like I said, I have a perspective. And the more perspectives we can come together, the more fractals we can find, the greater our communal understanding, and the more problems we can solve along the way.
Very well said. Thanks for your time, Johnson. I hope people will be benefited from this talk, and also, as you said, but they can find MLC, and that's the beginning. From there, they can probably work towards that communal cohesion that we are looking for.
You're welcome. It's been enjoyable and a pleasure.